Okay. That before we get into our innovation fundraising ideas, I would like to give you a brief context or background of EduSports. And in doing this, at EduSports, we ask the big question: are we truly embracing the knowledge, skills, and aspirations already present within our communities? So in doing this, at EduSports, we ignite digitalized community-led education through community leadership training. And after training, these leaders or catalysts, we call them catalysts, which are local change makers, they set up community learning space called sports and also run learner clubs with our Keeping Sports Safe framework. Now, our local change makers, which are catalysts, also go through EduBite program to strengthen their digital confidence and career progression. All of this we do through WhatsApp and our EduSpot app. We have four educational strands that we run. Sorry, I was muted. So the first has to do with Educase, which is for early years, and the second is Digilate for upper primary learners to build their digital confidence. Then we have EcoSTEM for junior high schools, which is climate and STEM activities. Then Ignite Equity for junior high school as well, for which focus on gender equity and advocacy. So our communities select one or two of these strands. Great. So all of this work in a simple way. First of all, we work together with the communities to develop the curriculum. We then translate into monthly practical hands-on activities that they engage in every month. We have one-on-one mentorship with local change makers. And also we engage with each other or connect through WhatsApp, yeah, for peer learning and engagement. Now, we also give feedback and recognition just to motivate our catalysts to continue doing what they are doing. And it's also finally, we do mail, a comprehensive mail throughout the process.
So EduSpots across the last decade has been able to come together to create 50 learning hubs that are led by 400 local change makers, as Isaac said, called catalysts. And as we think about what comes next, as we've come together as a big community to explore what could come next for the network, this year we're thinking about how we sustain the network further, how we can ignite it further, moving from 50 to 100 spots in the next year, and how we can strengthen government partnerships. But we also thought about how we can, at this point, become more positioned within a collaboration space and how we can also share some of the learnings that have drawn from the network in this period. And as I'm sure is the case for some of you, most of EduSpots income comes from grants. So for context, last year we were 90% funded by grants. To give a sense of our income, it's at about 300,000. Just to give a sense of our kind of fundraising spectrum. And as I'm sure, like many of you, the whole process of applying for grants can be exhausting and very unpredictable, and that you never quite know when the money's going to land, if it's going to continue. It may be restricted in different ways. And then, so also alongside the grants, considering developing individual giving and corporates, that also seems to feel like there's a lot of kind of reaching out for help all the time that you again need to repeat. It feels like you're constantly on the ask, which again doesn't feel very sustainable. So it was about a year ago when we kind of came to the decade of EduSpots work that we kind of flipped the whole question again on the head. And it's interesting how when we think of the change at a community level, we often think about always focusing what starts in a community and building from the inside out, is what we say in EduSpot. And so when it came to fundraising, we thought, why are we not thinking the same way? Why don't we think about what we already have, what we've already developed, the innovations we've developed over a decade, the resources we have, the incredible staff team that we have, in how we think about how we can fundraise. And this led us into a decision to launch EduSpots Unlocked. which by the way isn't yet launched. So we're kind of sharing this today to just share some ideas, share some learnings, and hopefully gain your input into the journey as well. We definitely don't come from a point of having made this succeed as yet. So EduSpots Unlocked is basically responding to some calls from people who wanted to gain access to some of our resources and ideas and technology we've developed. It also responds to a need that we've had to increase our income and particularly gain access to more unrestricted income. We also want to be in more spaces where we're learning from other people, as we feel there's a lot of danger in kind of working in a silo where you're just applying for grants for your own work, but not really connecting with others. And also the way we're building EduSpots Unlocked, all of the different initiatives that are part of EduSpots Unlocked, they all fit within our theory of change. They're all about that kind of big vision of a world in which communities unite to create the futures they want to see. So I think this is a learning that we've learned not to kind of be developing something on the side that is kind of selling something that has no relevance to the theory of change, because we want everything to fit in and feed in different ways. And it's interesting that maybe some people have perceived this as kind of being on the side when we see this as another pathway to create the same aims whilst raising some income in the process. So we have 4 different strands of EduSpots Unlocked that we're going to share today. There's firstly an online course in communications. There's secondly WhatsApp for learning training. Thirdly, there is kind of online facilitation work that we do. And then fourthly, there's something called the EduSpots experience that we're aiming to launch in Elmina. And we're hoping to make this a bit interactive at this point. um, so just feeding into before we explain the online course, I'm curious, I'm sure this is a kind of decision all of you in this room are familiar with when you're leading your charity communications. I'm curious if you were going to be putting out an image that maybe, let's say, aims to promote a campaign to support a literacy program or kind of book donations, which image would you opt for if you were trying to run a campaign that was effective? Would you opt for the image A of a boy who's kind of alone, immersed in his book, or image B where there's a lot of people around him and he looks a bit more joyful? Okay. Thank you, everybody. So a lot more people saying B, and I'm sure, yeah, if we had a bit more time, I'd dig into why. In fact, does anyone want to come off mute just to bring a bit of interaction in? As EduSpots really hates one way education. Does anyone want to explain why they chose B? Come off mute.
I will. It's the same kind of thing that I do. It's like people want to see the results and they want to see what you've provided and the impact that you're having. They don't want to see from where they've come from, because everyone knows where they come from. You know, if they're disadvantaged or this, that, and the other, it's like, what are you actually doing now and how are the kids feeling now?
Amazing. So it's showing the actual result. It's like goal focused. It's portraying a positive picture of the future. And does anyone want to give it a different angle, a different reason why they chose B, not results based?
I'll say maybe it's promoting family.
Amazing. Yeah, so I think we're all familiar kind of coming into the ethics of communication, that sometimes in the past we've been guilty, especially when different geographical contexts are being represented, where we can show, in fact, I'll share a reflection from our team that fed into this, where the team, I think a year or so ago, developed an animation for a digital campaign that made the learner look as if they were completely alone, that they had no family around them, that they were this kind of lone kid in the dark. And then EduSpot comes along and ping, the world lights up and everything is great. And in EduSpot, we feel there's a real problem there, because if every kid perceives themselves in that way, to be in the dark, when they're maybe they have a little different resources in their context, maybe they have a few less opportunities of one kind, that is portraying this kind of stereotyped singular image of a kid. So to give it just a sense of some of the kind of work we've done in EduSpots just on this, I won't go on this for long, but we do quite a lot of animation work where we now try to portray things in a more positive way.
This is limited. 50 learners can share a single device.
So looking
The changes.
for strategies to basically show the problems, but focus on the process.
Today, she chooses to explore stories by Ghana authors, science in action, museums across the world, and the curriculum textbooks to succeed in school.
So just wanted to give you, I can share some more links to things afterwards, but basically, in terms of the EduSpots Unlocked, we what we thought is important in this area is basically conversation. So just like we've had a small conversation today, we don't believe there's always rights and wrongs about things, but we believe that it's really important to create spaces in this space where people feel able to discuss things without it being like, it must be this word used, that word not used, but more looking at things in this collaborative, empathetic way. So what we've done is come together to create an online course on communication, agency, and power. And this has been a whole kind of EduSpots teamwork piece. And it goes through sort of different themes that we did some research on what people were most interested in learning a bit more about, ranging from kind of centering people in a way that promotes local agency, to asset-based framing, to kind of looking at the world when it's increasingly moving, looking at migration themes, looking at theories of development. And it's run through the website. We have initially developed it in a very simple way, just through blogs on the website. But we're now using a plugin called LearnDash, which again, I have a wonderful team member, Frida, who's looking into how to really make it a good learner experience. And it basically has a mix of scholarship, kind of really practical, applying theory to practice to relevant everyday examples. And it ends every day, it's a 6-week thing. And at the end of every post, there's a discussion board where people from lots of different geopolitical contexts come together and share ideas in response to a prompt. So it aims to be engaging and kind of interactive in the way that it's developed. So yeah, it's for many different groups of people. So we thought quite a lot about the marketing in the past. We ran this for independent schools in the UK, where we raised quite a lot of income, charging, I think, £25 a course in the pandemic, and had around 500 students join. And use it as part of their service learning program. So again, a learning here was thinking about, where does this fit in within a school curriculum? Is it with PSHE? Is it with geography? And really getting input from the teachers. Is it extension work? Is it about the charity committee? And now at this point, we're looking also at NGOs and seeing whether this fits some interests people have there. So in terms of the kind of rough cost, this is what we're thinking so far, keeping it relatively low cost for schools, free for state schools, free for members of our own community, free for some community change makers. So again, it's like it's feeding into our overall impact, whilst also having a kind of staggered approach for NGOs. So that's the first idea. Online courses, trying to promote ethical communication. And you'll see that we're learning in this process that it's not about us positioning ourselves as having all the answers, but opening discussions. Over to Isaac.
Right. Thank you, Kat. So, WhatsApp for learning. At this moment, I just want all of us to think of a WhatsApp page or group that we are in. And this page started all energized, people posting every day, sharing, lively. Then all of a sudden, the conversation stopped. People stopped posting. Nobody says anything on the platform anymore. I just want 2 people to tell me, why do you think this happened? Something that was so energized, people were posting, and all of a sudden it stops. Why do you think this happens?
You move on to different groups, don't you? And everything dwindles if the messages start getting less and less, and then you start focusing on maybe ones that are engaging you more.
Okay. Thank you, Jenny. Anyone else? So while we are doing that, I want us to share in the chat box. Just think about it. How many percentage of the WhatsApp groups that you are in that are dead now? That have the engagement has reduced, people don't really post there anymore. Randomly, how many percentage of the WhatsApp group you are in that are dead now? If you can just share with us in the chat box. Okay, 50% from Kat. Okay. 25 from Jenny. Okay, can we get a few? Okay, 15% from Lauren. Okay. All right, someone said at least half from Andy, so that's like 50%, as Kat also mentioned. All right, so this is the WhatsApp graveyard. We'll move on to. Right, so after 10 years or after a decade of using WhatsApp, to connect and promote continuous learning among our communities and organizations. We came up with Chat for Change. And just to mention that Chat for Change is not a new tool that we are introducing, but this is us using or helping organizations, movements, and communities to use an existing tool better. So it is to help them or to help them transform the way they use WhatsApp. So from just a simple messaging app to a well-structured, engaging, and measurable community platform. And some of the problems we seek to solve with Chat for Change has to do with limited tech infrastructure and increasing. So right now there's a lot of, because of the digital world, a lot of isolation. So these communities bring us together, and also poor existing use of WhatsApp, so helping them to use WhatsApp very well, and then the high cost. So even people in the lowest or underserved communities can use WhatsApp for learning and engagement. So our methodology span across 5 structures, and the first one has to do with the power of WhatsApp. Now, I want to find out how many of us have WhatsApp on our phones. If you have that, just give me a thumbs up. If you have WhatsApp on your phone, just give me a thumbs up. Whether reaction or chat, okay. Great. So that's a lot of thumbs up, meaning that almost all of us uses WhatsApp. Yes, and that is true. WhatsApp has 3.3 billion monthly users every month. And also now learning is becoming more social, conversational, and also continuous. And WhatsApp is at the intersection of all these 4 items that I just mentioned. So we introduce them to WhatsApp. And also the second part is safety. Now everybody asks, anytime you talk about digital, everybody asks how do you ensure that we are safe on this platform? And the third one is how we can engage everyone, how organizations can use WhatsApp to engage everyone and keep them going like EduSpots for the past decade now. And also how they can create a weekly flow so that administrators do not burn out and members also do not get tired of content that do not relate to them. And finally, a mail system that measures if what we are doing is actually working or not. So these are our offers. We have the Ignite offer, which is £350, the Catalyze offer, £1,500, and the Sustain offer, which is £5,000. We are open to discount offers for a year and consider stage pricing for different site organization. Now, so for us on this, I just want you to watch out for our upcoming tester session, which we'll be having soon. So moving to our communities of practice, I want to find out from you on a scale of 1 to 10. Do you find organizing partnership and collaborations online easy? On a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is very hard and 10 is very easy. Okay, I said 3. About 4, okay. 5, 7, 3.5. Okay, 7, great. Okay, so yeah, I've seen that we have a lot of 3, a lot of 4. So if I do my mathematics, an average of 4.5. Now, this is where our communities of practice comes in. So at EduSpot, currently we have 3 communities of practice, and we start from the CCOP. CCOP has to do with climate education, where a group of NGOs, now we have 10, and we are moving to 20 NGOs come together to discuss climate education and how they can promote climate education in underserved communities. Then we have EduCitizens, where global citizens come together to discuss global citizenship. And finally, the 10 in-house communities. So at EduSpots, we use WhatsApp to promote learning, as I mentioned. And then each of these has a hub that our local change makers use. We have 10 of them. Communities of practice. Okay, so these are what we offer in our communities of practice. So first is the WhatsApp community building, which has to do with the WhatsApp for learning, and also resource development. We give communications and design support, online Zoom learning facilitation, wider conference organization, learning, report, and organization. And this actually costs us between 5,000 to 25,000 pounds a year, depending on the work. And with the communities of practice, we're able to we raise 15,000 pounds every year with support from Gower Street.
Great. So the final strand of EduSpots Unlocked that we're excited to share is one that is focused around kind of ethical tourism. So I'm very sure that many of you have come across the challenge and the opportunity of bringing people in the international context who come from another country to engage with your work. And I'm very sure that many of you think deeply around how you can really build meaningful connection and understanding without it becoming into some kind of exhibit where people who are receiving things are photographed and made to say thank you, and that we can feel the unhealthy power dynamic in the process. And we've spent quite some time thinking about this. And generally in EduSpot, we don't typically enable people to visit the spots other than people who have a connection with that particular community, that the spots are community-led. And if they invite someone of their own, then that's kind of on them. And maybe there are some times when perhaps a bigger funder wants to have a visit opportunity that may be organized in a very structured and appropriate way. But in terms of kind of wider donors who kind of just want to see, we don't say, oh, just go and visit a spot. It's all has a very, we try to have a very intentional thought process around everything. And so we spent quite some time thinking, how can we enable people to connect, but without necessarily having some of the harms that can arise from mixing tourism with social impact. And what we've done, again, this is the early stages, and this flyer needs a lot of improvement in terms of overcrowding, is that we are developing the idea of the EduSpots experience, which we're sharing today because we thought it might be relevant to some of you who maybe have a training centre, as we do in Elmina, which happens to have quite a high tourist footfall. Footfold, is that a word? Footfall. And the idea is that instead of them kind of coming and, looking at the kids or meeting the kids or engaging with the clubs, that instead they actually join a leadership session themselves, that they go with someone like Isaac, who, by the way, is a brilliant digital skills educator, wider leadership trainer, and they actually sit in an EduSpot session that's specially curated for them, and that they also engage in more of an exhibition around EduSpot's journey over 10 years, seeing some of the learner work, but in a way that, positions them as well as a learner and a partner, rather than somebody who's there to kind of donate and kind of get mixed up in all the complexities that we have. So the idea is also, from a fundraising perspective, that there will be a relatively small fee for the tour or the visit. But the idea is, I'm sure you'll all be thinking, is that it creates a donor pathway into the future, or opens pathways into the future, that if we build strong relationships and capture their emails, that you never know what opportunities that can open. And we all know that it's often when people have engaged with the work more directly that they feel a closer affiliation with it, especially if there's someone in that country who has a closeness to that country. And this is also part of our strategy to have much more of our fundraising happening in Ghana, with donations from Ghanaians, as there's a lot of wealth within Ghana, but there are slight differences in the fundraising culture and how it works. So this came from speaking lots to Ghanaians about how they wanted to engage. So that's those are some of our learnings we've hoped to share along the way. You can follow us if you can spread the word about some of these with people who might be interested. It'll be launched in August. We've also got a short survey if you have a moment, for those of you who are particularly interested in feeding into this. And when we launch things, we'd love any of you to join us in this process, which is going to be an interesting process of exploration. So at this point, we're very happy. Any questions, suggestions, ideas, we are here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for the great presentation. And yes, everybody, if you've got any questions or any reflections, this is the time to share and ask. Anyone? Any reflections? Otherwise, we still have a couple of minutes, or we could move to our second speaker. Okay, Alice, shall we move to our second speaker then?
Yeah, I think we can. Oh, there's a question.
Oh, there's a question. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you seen much engagement from local fundraising organizations? So we're in the process of trying to also build a corporate strategy within Ghana. So that's typically, I think, where there is more funding within the Ghanaian context. But obviously, we want to think carefully about which type of organizations we want to affiliate with. So yeah, the idea is building a kind of corporate partnership circle that also adds some networking opportunities that maybe come together in person in the kind of breakfast meetups in Accra, as there's quite a culture of that. So that's something where we've got one one corporate partner who has also agreed, maybe, yeah, the learning here is to find some people to get behind you with this who can themselves open further doors. So we have one brilliant long-term supporter who happens to run a gym, who has access to other groups and is very keen to support on the journey. And also we're looking at getting a hotel on board who can then host the meetings. So all of these help reduce all the kind of costs that can emerge when you start setting up these things. And we've also had some great success recently in setting up individual giving within Ghana. We found it quite difficult because people don't typically sign up for things that have the ongoing monthly donor loops as you do with people who have bank cards. So we've set up our own system around mobile money where they get a receipt just to really make sure everything feels very official and that they get a call to kind of remind them of the next month, which has taken quite a lot of work, but it's been great. I think we built up 35 donors so far in monthly giving in Ghana in a relatively short space of time. And there are a few trusts and foundations, again, in Ghana that we're applying to. They do seem to be quite time intensive on applications for the level of funding. It's just something that we're thinking about as well. And I've had some donations, more donations in kind of, laptops and digital devices. And books is always something we're trying to get more support with. Your main challenge is writing a winning proposal for a grant. Think that would need to be a whole other session. But definitely, I think, yeah, there's definitely tricks to writing good grants. And I think having really good, having someone to give you trusted feedback on them is probably one of the most important parts of this. Yeah, I don't think I can address that one in this time. Happy to pass on to the next group if there are no other questions. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Jenny, for comment. I'll message you.
Super. Thank you so much. It was really insightful, and I'm sure we have all taken quite a lot from that. And thank you for all those reflections that people put in the chat as well. So let's move to our second speaker. And I believe we have Andy from Kids for Kids.
That's right. Hi, hello everybody. I'll just share my screen. Right. Can everybody see and hear me?
Yes, we can.
Ah, excellent. Okay. Right. Well, I can no longer see you because of the wonders of technology, but I'm going to press on here anyway. Kat and Isaac, thank you so much. That was an excellent presentation. I feel a little bit scared now to actually try and follow in your footsteps. And I must applaud you for not mentioning the result last night in the World Cup where you held us to a 0-0 draw in Ghana. So thank you for that. Just before I get started, I would like to say, if you're on this call, if you're on this in this meeting, it means that you've made a conscious decision to work within the charity sector. And for that, I applaud you. It really is not for the faint-hearted. I came to this relatively late in my career, and I've been overwhelmed, in fact, with the sheer compassion and decency and integrity and authenticity of the people that I've encountered. And I kind of regret waiting so long to have come into this. So I really do applaud every single one of you that gets up every day and tries to make a difference. And allow me to talk to you about this subject, fundraising for the forgotten, talking about creative ways and challenges in which we try and build support for crises that perhaps don't get the attention they deserve. So the opening question, I think, is,
sorry to interrupt, but I'm not sure we can see your slides.
Oh, goodness me, that's not clever.
Precisely. Thank you.
Okay. Can you see the slide saying opening question?
I think they were up and they've gone down again. So you
sort of disappeared.
Yeah. Oh, bless you. Right. So that's the internet. It's very warm here, and so I'll try again. Let me try again. Okay. Can you see my slide now?
No, not yet.
Oh, goodness me. This is terrible. Okay. Right. Okay.
Can help you share your slides.
Yeah, if you put the slides in the chat, I'm happy to share my screen. You are.
Yeah.
Or someone else has them. Sorry. Yeah. Better solution.
Okay. Right. Shall I stop sharing then, and you can share for me, Grace? Would that be okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Just 1 second. Right. I've stopped sharing now. Sorry, everybody. Actually, so just while we're waiting, I won't tell a joke, but what I will say is, Kat and Isaac, I did enjoy the fact when you were talking about EduSpots, how you have a plan to scale as well, which I think is so important in terms of mapping out the future for your charity.
I think we could have another whole conversation on scaling and some of the hazards of dreaming big and thinking you can grow faster than your operations.
Sure.
Yeah, great. We have the slides coming.
Lovely. Thank you. Okay, I'll just say next slide, please.
I lost everything.
Right, thank you. So I'm going to press on. The question, what happens when your cause stops making headlines? And the need remains, the cameras are gone, the world's media has looked away. Next slide, please. We live in an attention economy, as we all know. What's news one day is not news the next, and this sort of cycle moves incredibly quickly. Like if I think in the UK right now, we've got a new prime minister that's just resigned, and we'll get a new one soon. And how soon before that ceases to be front page news? And what's very clear, what we know, is that funding definitely follows those things that are very much in the public eye. And our experience is such, crises that aren't making the news do become much harder to get funded, and this is very much something that many charities, I'm sure, can attest to. Next slide, please. Right, so Kids for Kids operates in Darfur in Sudan, and I'll just make some points about our charity, if I may, just to give you the context of what our challenges are. Sudan, as you're probably aware, was labelled by the UN, no less, as the largest humanitarian crisis on the planet. The numbers are shattering. The number of lives lost, I don't care to share on this platform. Infrastructure has been absolutely decimated. There is food poverty, malnutrition is rife. People live in fear of their lives, and yet this crisis is now entering its 4th year since hostilities surfaced again. And how much of it do we really see in the news? I don't think, I suggest that probably not too much. You just go on to the next slide, please. And you ask yourself, why does Darfur matter? Well, as a country, Sudan has got 7 pretty hostile neighbours, all with their own geopolitical challenges. So the country itself is isolated. It's incredibly resource rich, but that makes it a bit of a target for those countries, that want to use the Port Sudan for their own purposes. And so we hear of strategies being employed. I won't name the countries, not in this forum, but there are bad actors at play who seek to take advantage of what is a desperate situation. And with all of that backdrop, human suffering, it carries on. Poverty, hunger, malnutrition, violence, these are all daily occurrences for the people of Darfur. You click on, please. Thank you very much. So Kids for Kids, how did it actually come into being? It was founded in 2001 by a remarkable lady. Her name is Patricia Parker, and she's still involved with the charity even today. A real force of nature, and somebody that I will love to introduce you all to at some point. She was in Sudan with her son, who was attached to the Foreign Office, and they actually just saw a child walking through the desert carrying an empty jerry can. And of course, Patricia being a mum, she couldn't let that pass without actually inquiring where in this desert of nothing the child was headed. And it transpired that he was on his way to collect water, simple water for his family. He was, I believe, 9 years old at the time, and he was in the middle of a 7-hour walk for water, which he did on as many days in the week as was necessary. 7 hours in the searing sun, at danger, at peril, because he's on his own, in a hostile environment. But that was the basic necessity of life. And so from that simple scenario of Patricia seeing that child walking through water, it spurred her on to actually say, well, what can actually be done? What would it take to change the future for that family? And water was a good place to start. Go to the next slide, please, if you may. Thank you very much. So from that simple encounter, what has Kids for Kids become in the 25 years preceding? Well, we started with goat loans. And I say we, I mean, I'm relatively new to the charity. So it started with goat loans, and goats are great because they provide protein-rich milk, which for a young family is critical for survival. And actually, these goats, what happens? They gave 5 goats and a billy goat to the sort of least well-off families in the villages that they encountered, and then those 5 goats would provide milk, and then eventually they would be able to raise their own and pass those goats on. So you effectively started a domino effect via a very simple provision, which is a goat. And there's no sort of coincidence that goat also stands for greatest of all time. It might just be the greatest animal on the planet. We also started to provide donkeys, which were able to pull to pull the carts, to carry food, to carry supplies, to carry water. We gave chickens, which provided eggs for the elderly. And then it sort of just grew and grew and grew. So seeds, tools, allowing the people to become farmers and to actually provide food and take responsibility for their ongoing well-being. We also install hand pumps for water in nearby villages. What I didn't realise when I came into the charity is that Sudan, despite being sub-Saharan Africa, sits on top of the largest aquifer outside of the Asian continent. It's the size of Belgium, so there's ready water there, but accessing it has been a challenge. So Patricia decided that we should install hand pumps. Those hand pumps are really expensive, and inflation's out of control in Sudan, so they got even more expensive. But nonetheless, it's been a lifeline. So by providing water in the villages, of course, it meant that that child, for example, his name was Ibrahim, did not need to go walking 7 hours to find it. He was then able to get back into education, because the next thing we did was started to build schools. Education is a way out of poverty. That's a well-established point, and Kat, you would agree with me from your endeavours as well. So we build schools, and then we realised that goats might become sick, so we started to train paravets. Women in Sudan are desperately afraid of becoming pregnant because the healthcare is not what it needs to be, and it's if a life-threatening situation. So we train midwives and first aiders so that we can then provide that healthcare and provide safer births for families. So, and it's this ripple effect of these small things that we do. Now, Patricia, if she were was giving this presentation instead of me, she would talk about her belief not in charity, but in enablement or empowerment, allowing people to be responsible for their own futures. And that is very much the ethos of Kids for Kids, is providing the ability to support your own existence. Could I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Right, so we're a charity, we're dependent on income, we're dependent on funds, and recruiting donors, as we all know, is an ongoing, perpetual challenge. And we sort of drilled into what donors really need. How do you successfully recruit a donor? And I think it's about what is your proposition to make you an attractive charity, which somebody, your neighbour, your friend, a corporate partner would want to be involved in. And there's 5 elements there that I've listed. Clarity, and I think that means clarity of message. I think often, certainly when I sort of took my first look at Kids for Kids, it was clear to me that there's so much that they do, as you saw in the previous slide, but we need to be very clear on what the actual meat and drink, if you like, of what we do is. Trust. For trust, read transparency. If you're in the UK, you'll be familiar with a few adverse bits of publicity that certain charities have undergone. I won't name them, but the problem is, I think, is that when trust is in any sense questioned or is made is brought into the open, the whole sector has that ripple effect where people lose confidence in actually making donations. So I think there's a responsibility upon all of us to behave in the right way, compliant with the Charities Commission and everything else, so that we can build and rebuild trust in what we're doing. Evidence, and for evidence, you should read, I suppose, impact. If you want to have people that are perpetually going to support your objectives and your mission, then you need to be providing the evidence to them that their money is making the difference. And there are a variety of ways which we can do that. Obviously, social media is the one. I'm a bit too old to get good at social media, but I'm told that it's very effective. Human connection. I think people buy stories, don't they? So with Kids for Kids, it is a very real, very visceral, very human story that we tell, and you have to articulate that in such a way that your donors will connect with your purpose. And I think the other one that perhaps we sometimes forget as a sector is about hope. Very often we're describing the situation as it is now, but by very definition, it's usually quite desperate. But actually, what you've got to be able to illustrate is what the future could be if we all collaborate and if we all get together and support the charitable aims of whatever charity it might be, whether it be EduSpots, whether it be Kids for Kids or any other. And I think that's really important. So those 5 things, we need to be mindful of as we seek to recruit our donors. Could I trouble you for the next slide, please? Thank you. Here's a good question. I mean, that picture there is actually a village that Kids for Kids adopted, I think about 2012. I may be wrong, I apologize. But it's it brings together everybody because they are so invested in their own futures and in what we hope to do for them. The thing is, it's about maintaining support. I'm always grateful for every donation that comes in. I'm especially grateful for every donation that says I'll continue to donate, regular giving. And we have to keep those people connected with a cause that is, by virtue of geography, is thousands of miles away. That is a significant challenge for us and for every charity, I think, is to maintain relevance and to remain visible. Next slide, please. Right. That is a lovely young girl from one of the villages who we adopted in 2011. So she'll be a grown lady now. And that's one of the goats that we provided, and they're gorgeous creatures. So what strategies have we found to work? And this phrase of donor stewardship, which I'm sure is one we're all familiar with, but it's become almost a PhD level subject in our lives. So human stories, as I've said, tangible outcomes is critical. This consistent communication, community ownership, long-term relationships. We can drill into what those things mean essentially, but it's about storytelling and it's about finding your audience. Next slide, please. It's important that the stories, as I said, have hope. That there is a hand pump that we provided to a village, and that's quite a powerful picture because it actually shows your money in action, candidly, and showing a visceral benefit to the commitment you made to support us. So these kind of stories, again, very important. Next slide, please. So took an opportunity just to put some cute pictures up of some goats and some donkeys, really. They're just gorgeous animals, aren't they? I have to say, sustainability is the key word, as Patricia will tell you. It's not about being there in the moment. It's about being there for the future. So giving money and then walking away is fine. Giving money and seeing that money then serve a future for the people of Darfur in this case is actually what makes the difference. You can see our goats, our hand pumps, the midwives, the kindergartens that we build, the trees, community ownership. I saw a picture recently of one of our kindergartens where all the children were bedecked in these beautiful uniforms, which was just a joy to see. And you can see the provision of musical instruments and such like. And the gratitude that they have is just immense. We try to build communities. So what I would say is, since 2001, we've adopted 110 villages, and we've supported just over 600,000 people, which is remarkable from one child walking in the desert for water. But we're just getting started. Darfur is the size of France. So there's an awful lot more for us to support and to help. Next slide, please. Right. So in terms of fundraising, I think historically, Kids for Kids, we're still a small charity by the definitions of the Charities Commission, and we have a very sort of particular demographic, if you like, that our charity appeals to. And I think my job is to sustain that demographic, but also, as we seek to move further and support more people and adopt more villages, is to expand the numbers of people that we engage with. So it's very important for us that we choose which channels are appropriate for us to chase, if you like, and then from there devise the strategies that will pay off. Like all charities, certainly small ones, we have limited resources, so we don't have the luxury of trying something and see if it works out. We have to be pretty certain that whatever we do and whatever investments we make in donor recruitment, which you have to do, are going to pay off. Now, it's a difficult equation because there's nothing certain in life, but it does mean that we have to be clever and we have to be very guarded, if you like, in the ways in which we choose to invest our money. You see the different things. Corporate partnerships, they could take a couple of years to come through. So it's about playing the long game. certainly the community fundraising, and by that I mean talking to schools and church groups and charitable organisations. We have like the Rotary groups. They are very willing to engage generally, but obviously there's a lot of competition because we're not the only charity out there. Major donors and philanthropy. We listened to Bill just earlier on talking about that, and it does seem to be a dark art. Certainly, having spoken to Bill, I think I'm going to need to give him a call. But there's certainly engaging with those groups for whom I'm sure they are inundated with, lots of noise from lots of charities. How do you make yours be the standout charity? How do you effectively tell your story that says, please partner with us? Digital campaigns, which again, another dark art and a little bit. I just wish I'd been born, a few years later, so I could have really become skillful at this. But embracing social media clearly is the way forward. As I said, this attention economy that we live in, you're competing with everybody for their moments in time. So again, something else to embrace, and of course legacies in terms of memoriams and such like, and when people donate in their wills, which again is a wonderful thing for people to consider to do for us as almost as a tribute to their life. And chasing those opportunities, of course, requires a bit of sensitivity and a lot of investment in terms of time up front. So as I say, I think the important thing for us, for Kids, is to decide how we're going to approach each of these demographic opportunities and then act accordingly. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is important, I think. Supporters becoming ambassadors, and that's because they understand what our mission is and they feel ownership to it. And this thing about inviting donors to join you on the journey is, again, it's about effective storytelling. The challenge right now in the UK, the Charitable AIDS Foundation has published their UK Giving Report, and there's a few alarming statistics in there that I recall. One is that in a decade, £6 billion of money has gone. The amount of money that's been donated over the years has reduced by £6 billion in that preceding decade, which is a concern. Less and less people are able to do so. 49% of the people surveyed for the 2026 report said they just didn't have the money. And we live in the times that we live in, and that's absolutely a true statement, I'm sure. But the more alarming piece was that in that same survey, at least a third of the people asked were just disinterested. They were disengaged with the charitable sector. Now, the reasons for that may be many and varied, but it does point to a certain malaise amongst the people whom we require to be involved and to be engaged to actually support our charitable aims. And how do we redress that? I don't think a single charity on its own necessarily can do that. I do think collectively we can as a voice, which is why I think the SIDCN is so important, is because that it's a platform and it's a collective platform where we can all effectively combine our message, because one voice in the wilderness is great. 1,000 voices all shouting together can make an awful lot more noise. So I do think this is something we need to collaborate on in some way. Next slide, please. Right, so I told you I came into this operation quite late in life. I come from a commercial background, like medical devices, if you're interested, sort of in international business. And I was determined actually to come into charitable sector because it was more purposeful and aligned more with my own personal values. Don't need to get into those now, but like everybody, I kind of went through this journey and transitioned into this sector. What was absolutely clear to me from the very moment that I alighted here is that business thinking, as unpalatable as that might be for certain organizations that exist in a world where they're trying to do good, it's critical. You cannot not run your operation like it were a business. It doesn't mean you have to generate a profit We don't talk about profits, we talk about surplus and deficits, of course. But we need to be mindful that if we want to serve our charitable aims, if we want to achieve our mission, we have to be very, very professional and very, very centered in the way we run our operations. So financial resilience, strategic planning, certainly for a small charity that has ambitions to be a bigger charity, you have to do that correctly, and that does involve a certain amount of business thinking. Next slide, please. And of course, as I made the reference before, you need to diversify your incomes. I spoke about those different channels. Kids for Kids arguably has probably gone down one channel more than the others, and that's great, but that's not sustainable. We probably need to then to diversify into others. And it's a very important point. This word resilience. You've got to be resilient before crisis hits, before you really are in trouble and you can't see a runway, and you've done the projections and your spreadsheets tell you that you're going to run out of money in X number of months. So building up healthy levels of reserves that you can deploy, and having a strategic plan that you can monitor and track against become critical issues. And it's not something that a lot of charity CEOs, certainly founder charities, founder CEOs, particularly wants to do, or because that's what they didn't get into it for that. They got into it because they wanted to make a difference in the world, and I think that's commendable, and that should always be the primary objective. You just need to make sure that behind that you've got sustainable, resilient organization. Next slide, please. Okay. I'm not sure if my colleague is on this call, but she will be rolling her eyes when I talk about measuring what matters. Metrics, that my favorite word. You have to track what you're doing to do your trends analysis, to make sure that for example, the income is sustainable, that you're reaching the right numbers of people, that you're basically fulfilling the charity's mission and vision. So you need to collect your data, impact data. It's critical. We're just in the process of doing our annual report, which means we're collating all of our impact in Darfur so that we can report to anybody that's reading our report, whether they be a foundation, whether they be a high net worth individual, whether it be a school. They know that we are deploying their cash in the right way, achieving the right objectives. So we have to measure. I've become a bit of a bit anal about metrics, and I got told off. I didn't need to be checking how many paper clips we were actually using on a document. So I recognise I can go too far, but I think it's important that you build a wide body of things that you measure, because eventually natural wastage and the needs of the operation will determine what is actually worth keeping, worth what is just the vanity of the CEO, and he really ought to go back and make his own coffee or something. And I accept that. So as I say, have metrics, track them, be consistent, build that impact data. Don't be afraid to ask the questions in theatre of what's going on, so that you can report it. It's critical that the people that are considering supporting you know exactly what it is you're going to be doing with their partnership. Next slide, please. Right, so these are my takeaways, and this is as much me learning in my role, really. We should be authentic. We should be absolutely committed to our vision. We should live that vision, our ethos. We should be consistent in our communications, in our actions, in the way in which we live our values. Absolutely be evidence-led. As I say, collect that impact data, because that's the proof. That's the proof. Challenge somebody when they tell you what good they're doing. If you can't quantify, I suggest it's a different story. And then, as I say, be focused on the mission and vision. One of my jobs right now, as the new CEO, is to determine what our vision is for the next generation. We're 25 years in. I'm actually concerned with the next 25 years and what that looks like. Because when I know what that looks like, I can then start to plan the right things to be doing, the right approaches to be made, the right strategies to actually achieve that vision. and then hand it on to my children. Who knows? So that's very much important that you begin with the end in mind, and carry on accordingly. Next slide, please. Thank you. It's clear that the world is not going to switch off its activity anytime soon. We see this in Darfur. I think it's a gloomy outlook, sadly, and we're having to adjust our proposition to continue to support them. Communities they're still forgotten. In Darfur is probably the worst example on the planet. The statistics are horrible. I do think it means that charities have to be innovative about how they approach achievement of their objectives, and how they deal with the very fact of income is a challenge. On every day I wake up, and the challenge hasn't diminished in any sense, and that's right and proper, but it's also something that we need to be very, very clear on. And survival, I think, let's be very honest, not every charity is going to survive. That's the reality. In business, it's the same. In business, it's probably healthy that businesses kind of have to regenerate and refill the economy. But in charity, it's a different story. So we need to pull together, but we also need to adapt to make sure that we remain relevant and viable, and that we continue to support the people that still need us. So that's the future, I think. And last slide, please. Back to the lovely girl with the goat, bless her. The world may look away, but we, as the SIDCN, as Kids for Kids, as EduSpots, can't. It's our responsibility. We can't walk away. So I thank you, all of you, for listening. I hope you could hear me. I hope you could hear my English accent. I'm very grateful to have had the opportunity through SIDCN to share this presentation. And as I say, it's been a joy to be amongst like-minded people. I'll pause for questions at this point and thank my beautiful slide changer. Thank you so much for your help. I do appreciate that, and apologies for being so ham-fisted with the controls.
Andy, thank you so much for your presentation. And to the rest of our participants, please do go ahead and ask questions if you've got, or any feedback, or any sort of thoughts, reflections, perhaps. Just checking if there's anything on our chat.
I see one here from Mari Hamilton. Have you seen much engagement from local funding organisations? The answer to that question is not particularly. The way. Sorry, is it okay to ask the question, Anya? I do apologize.
Yeah, no, of course. This was for a previous presenter, but I think it's a very valuable question, and I think relevant as well. So.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. It's not my question, but I'll pretend it was. Interesting. We work with some incredible volunteers in Darfur. We have to. So our steering committees in the villages, they're so brave. They're so brave. They're just so willing to obviously, they've got a vested interest because they're trying to live their lives. And I think I, being in the UK, sometimes forget that the real work happens in Sudan. Yeah, sorry.
No, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions for me? That's what I should ask. It looks like either I've wowed you all or lulled you into a long sleep from which you'll you'll recover eventually. But thank you very much. I can see some things in the chat there.
There's a couple of thank yous for.
Yeah. Okay, Jenny. Yes, I'll come back to you, Jenny. Thank you. Bless you. Oh, well, thank you all for listening. I say it's actually my first time with the SIDCN, so I feel like I've been indoctrinated into your wonderful process, and I do appreciate it. Thank you.
No, we appreciate you as well, and sharing and telling the story of how your organization works and what you do, and the support that you're providing. So we're really grateful. I have also popped a link to our Google Drive for everyone. You could find helpful resources there and the slide decks from our guest speakers. So do go ahead and have a look what's there. And if we've got no more questions, we have a little bit longer break until our next part of the day, and that will be 1:20 in the afternoon, 1:20 UK time. And you can also join our WhatsApp group, and Alex has just put the link there. We hope that this will be also a community where you can connect with others who are working in the world of small international development charities and share your stories, share resources. So we very much encourage you to join that group as well. But in the meantime, thank you so much, everyone, and we will welcome you back at 1:20.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Cheers.